The $5 to $7 million range just exposed the truth of what's actually moving in this market and what's not. From the first day of tracking, January 19th, until the end of week 8, which is March 15th, we have had 13 new additions in the $5 to $7 million range, 10 of which are in the $5 to $6 million range, and 3 of which are in the $6 to $7 million range. This is a mix of back on market properties and new to market properties. Of the 3 $6 to $7 million homes, 2 of them are already pending in the Meerlands, and then one of them, which was one of the newer additions of the bunch, is still sitting active with no price reduction, so they're holding firm. What's interesting is that the first 7 additions that came on between the time frame of Jan 19th until February 8th are still active on market. 5 of these homes were new to market and 2 were back on market. The earlier listings also had a higher concentration of homes with a higher price per square footage. I also noticed that the 2 homes out of the bunch with the highest price per square footage, which are in the $5 to $6 million range, recently had their first price reduction. So that's end of February for one and early March for the other. So between 2.9 and 4.9% reduction, and they're still sitting active on market. The price per square footages for each is running around $1,800 a square foot till about $2,200 a square foot. And again, of these 13 new additions, 2 of them are already pending in the Meerlands, and then 1 of them already sold in 16 days in La Jolla Mesa, and those 3 homes came on after those 7 homes. So they got picked up by buyers after. So those other homes got skipped. Although one of the pendings in Meerlands was off market for the holidays, and then it came back on market, right, with a $105,000 price reduction at 1.5%, it went pending. So it was still off market, right? And then it came back on, and just completely passed all the other homes. So let's start with the sold listing, 5381 Moonlight Lane. So that house sold in 16 days. It skipped the 7 homes, and then it skipped the what was already in the active inventory, regardless of what that price per square footage is of the active inventory, because some of them are lower, but they've been sitting on market. So of course, when something new comes, the buyers are looking that direction, right? So Moonlight Lane came in, that got picked up. So 5.399 mil, sold for 5.4 mil, 16 days again. The price per square footage, roughly 1096, and it almost sits on a fourth of an acre lot at 0.23 acres. It has expansive views, coastal views, bay views, right? And the house itself, it does need a little bit of work, but not much. And it's a really nice layout, nice and open, and it has a nice beautiful pool with a waterfall as well. Moonlight Lane is also one of the larger square footage homes, which is why the price per square footage is lower. Of course, it's almost 5,000 square feet. Now let's discuss those 2 homes that went pending in the Meerlands out of that bunch of 13 and why they may have skipped all these other homes, okay? So the first house in the Meerlands, it sits on a 0.39 acre lot, and it's just over 4,600 square feet. Not surprising given it's in the Meerlands. We generally see larger homes on larger lot sizes over there. So there's a main house, there's a guest house with a game room, there's a pool, at-home gym setup, there's a rooftop deck where you can capture expansive ocean views, and then they have a putting green as well. The house itself has high ceilings, vaulted ceilings, and it's not completely remodeled. It's like an older remodel, but it's very sophisticated. Very sophisticated. And the buyer came in and wrote an offer on that house when it was listed at $1,494 a square foot, which is kind of the mid-range of the other $5 to $7 million homes. Also, please note that yes, we are still comparing the 5 to 6 to 6 to 7. Why? Because still, sometimes when there's a buyer that, let's say they're looking at a house that's 5.7 mil, a lot of them will go up, to a house maybe that's 6.5 mil. So the ranges are kind of within those parameters. Like, yes, they still will be kind of different if it's like a 6.8 house versus like a 5.2 house. Yes, I understand that. But for the purpose of this analysis, and also how sometimes buyers are within those ranges are actually looking maybe between 5 to 7, it does happen. That's the way we can do this analysis. Okay, and the second house in the Meerlands that went pending out of that bunch, it went pending in 4 days, just this early March, just this first week of March. New to market, skipped all the other ones, okay? And this one, so it sits on a 0.59 acre lot, just over 5,000 square feet, expansive ocean and course views, and it has amenities, okay? So we have an infinity pool, we have an outdoor grill area, we have a putting green, a half basketball court, high vaulted ceilings. The house was redone, but there are still some aspects like some carpet and such, right? But other than that, like this house for 1305 a square foot, when you're comparing that to all the other homes, all the other, like this one was a steal. This one was a steal for what you're getting. And that kind of shows us that the buyers, they are kind of price sensitive right now. They're looking at value too, like overall value, right? But then on the flip side, there's another home that has all these amenities like a sauna, it has an outdoor kind of gym area and such, right? And then that house is still sitting and it has a competitive price per square footage too. But it's still sitting and it's been on market for quite some time. So the thing is also if you're listing, if it's been on market like a long time and then there's other homes just piling in and you're not really like reducing or doing something about it, especially if you have no showings within a long amount of time, then your listing is getting then that listing is getting really stale and it's just sitting there. And it's just like, but there are times where listings do get picked up, after being on market for a long time. Like for example, there's Moonridge here in La Jolla Heights. Moonridge is 4.5, it sold for 4.4 after like 170 something days on market. So it is possible, right? But I think like when you see that there's these other influx of new homes coming in and then those homes are getting picked up so fast, but then you're saying like, well, I have amenities too and I have ocean views, like why isn't mine going? So it all comes to perception too, buyer perception, because also if the listing has been on market for a long time, like buyers perceive that a certain way. It's psychology. It's psychology. And also they're sitting at their computer, right? So it's like they're sitting at their computer and then like they see the first few images and then all that. So there's some things to take into consideration where it's not only just like the pricing of the house, but it's also the timing of like when they're coming on market too, the positioning of the house as well. Buyer perception is everything, honestly. So next we have our weekly summary. So for week 8, March 9th until the 15th, right? So we have 77 active detached homes minus 3 which are not truly detached. So that's 74. Then we have 28 pending homes. And then we have 143 units in total in all of La Jolla. Okay, now let's compare the pending. So last week in that video, we stated that the week before we had 10 homes go pending. 10 homes go pending, 8 without a history of price reductions. Well, this last week, we have 6 homes going pending. So we're down in pendings. And this ranges, we have 3 mil and under, 3 to 5 mil, and then we have one that's in the 7 to 9 mil range. So 4 of these 6 homes, 2/3 of them, have no history of price reductions and they still got picked up. So that does show us that the buyer demand, of course, is still there, yes. And we know that from the 5 to 7 mil range discussion as well. But what I want you to notate is that just from that week to this week, we're down, okay? So let's see how this plays out. So this last week, we have had 4 price reductions, which averaged just under $360,000 with an average percentage reduction of roughly 4.83%, which is around the middle mark of since we started tracking from January 19th, week by week. And our range reductions this week were a little tighter, right? So we had from 75,000 up to 900,000, which is from 2% up to 7.1%. We also have a median price reduction of $231,000, which is down from last week, which was $295,000. And lastly, we have the price range reduction sheet, right, which I've updated. So I have week 8 here for you guys, and we have 3 to 5 mil. 3 to 5 mil still standing out. Look at that. Groups of 1s, groups of 2s into a 3. What an interesting pattern, except I can already tell you next week it's going down. It's going down. But we also see here that we had a 13 to 15 mil reduced too. Again, the 3 to 5 mil makes up the bulk of the inventory. The ones that are on the higher end, like all these ones plus, they make up, of course, they make up less. They make up less, which would explain why it's kind of sporadic as well. Okay? And that's what I have for you this week. I'll see you again next week. And if you ever have any questions or would like more insight, because I have a lot more insight, and it's only growing as we move week by week. They get better and better, right? Because we're collecting more data and we have more time to play with the data. So if you ever want more insight into La Jolla detached homes or trends, I'm always here for you. 858-414-6310. And again, I'm Tara Ravenbach with Craig Lotsoff and Associates at Compass. We'll see you next week. Thank you.